I just felt like God was saying, you're living for the dot, not the line. Like the dot is like the amount of time we have on earth, and like the line is like eternity, right? Like it's like the dot that starts it. And it's like, God doesn't care about how much money you make at all. He cares about like what you do with it.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Christian Agent Podcast. I am Garrett Maroon, your host, and I'm super excited for my guest today. You're going to love learning about Austin Hare. He is way cooler than I am, first and foremost, and he's done a lot of really interesting things. And we're going to talk today about the disciplines of success, and specifically from a biblical perspective. What does it take in terms of discipline in our day, in our family, in our bodies, in our finances, in our health, and all of those pieces that are going to lead us to success? Because the reality is we work to honor and glorify the Lord. You don't honor the Lord if you are less than excellent. Let's just be honest about that. But by being excellent in all things, and we're not going to do that perfectly, by striving for excellence in all things, we honor God, and we want to do that. And so that's what today the episode is about. Before I forget, we're super excited that you guys have joined. I have a free online community to teach you all how to sell 3 to 4 homes a year from a biblical perspective. You can find that link in the show notes. It's a free online platform called School. I hope you'll join me there. But before we dive in and talk about Austin and introduce him to you, let me start with a Christian dad joke. He's got one too, which is very timely because when you're listening to this, it would have just been Christmas a couple weeks ago. So let me kick off mine. Joel Schulstis, thank you for sending this to me. Austin, it's literally to the point where people are sending them to me, which is fantastic. It cuts down so much of my research time, just to be honest with you. So thank you, Joe. So here was his joke. Why does Jesus frequent a Japanese soup restaurant?
I have no idea.
Because he loves me so. I thought that was pretty good. That's pretty funny.
That's funny.
Yeah,
That's
I
clever.
like that. All right, so what you got, man? Hit me with what you got.
What do you call the day before Christmas Eve?
What's that?
Christmas Adam.
It's fantastic. I really do like that. Like, it's amazing. It's sad how much time I've spent researching jokes that are Christian and dad jokes that, I just keep finding the same ones. I've never heard that before. And so props. I think you told me your sister told you that. So props to her.
They were just calling it Christmas Adam. So I think
that's awesome. We
just repurposed it for a dad joke right on the fly here. So
I like it. Hey, well done, buddy. Well done. Well, we've got Austin Hare with us today, guys. I'm super excited for y'all to hear from him. He was a professional wakeboarder for 11 years, an American Ninja Warrior finalist. He's now a real estate investor, has short-term rentals, commercial, even wedding venues, which is really unique and niche. And most importantly, he's married with 2 kiddos. He said his daughter's 3, his youngest is 8 months, and his wife is 32, because no one asks how old the wife is. So we're excited that you're here, man. We're going to talk today about the disciplines of success. But Austin, thanks so much for joining me, buddy. I'm glad you're here.
Hey, thanks for having me, man. It's my pleasure.
Yeah, 100%, man. So let's dive straight in, right? You've had an interesting experience. Professional wakeboarder, that's interesting. Personally, I've never wakeboarded. I've never skied. I like trying not to die. Apparently, you like to die and test the Lord's sovereign plan for your life, which I respect. And then go into American Ninja Warrior. But let's talk first about this professional wakeboarding experience, right? To be a professional anything, I imagine, especially in that field where, at least from my perspective, feels even more niche than like being a professional baseball player like Tyler was. There's probably even fewer opportunities to do that. Walk me through how you even got into that, and then how do you get to the level of actually being professional and then doing it for 11 years? Walk us through that.
So my mom was a skier. She learned how to ski. We lived in Orlando when I was like 0 or 1 year old, pretty much.
Okay.
And my mom learned how to ski, and then we bounced all over Florida. And we ended up relocating to South Carolina when I was in 4th grade. And because my mom loved skiing, so she was a snow skier. My dad was into it as a hobbyist, but she was really into it. So they wanted to be on the lake so she could water ski as much as possible. So in 4th grade, learned how to water ski. And then around 6th grade, started wakeboarding. And just like, I got kind of bored with water skiing pretty quickly, just like the going back and forth type thing. I saw some guys doing flips on a wakeboard, and I'm like, man, I gotta go. Like, that looks so cool. We followed them around. There's this group of the guys called Southtown Riders. They're actually a Christian group. And they were just generous, invited me on their boat, taught me how to do like my first flip. And then I was just like, man, I want to do this. And I was like all in, but this from the time I was 12. So then it took me full circle because it brought me back to Orlando to pursue it professionally, because that was kind of like the hub of wakeboarding was in Orlando, because warm weather, a bunch of lakes, all the photographers, a bunch of guys with boats and that sort of thing. And so I continued to focus on wakeboarding while I still went to school, UCF, but I didn't take any summer classes. I was always traveling, all throughout the summer, couldn't do any school. And so it took 6.5 instead of 4 years, just like
Nice.
going pretty part-time.
Sure. Yeah.
But it was really fun. And I won the world championships in wake
Wow.
skating, actually. I was doing professional wake skating for a little bit there when it was not super competitive. And then I got second in the worlds in one of the years, I don't know, like 2010.
It's amazing.
And then, just was blessed to be able to do it for like a really, really long time. And so, I'm sure a lot of people can relate. It's like, it's not like a clear cut, like A to B. There's a lot of overlap in my story of like when I started wakeboarding, then I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad when I was like 19. And then I got my first house when I was 24 or 23, I think, 2011. And then I like opened up some fitness centers and I was like house hacking and like trying to open this gym and trying to wakeboard, and you know what I mean? Like I always like to bite off more than I can chew. So it's kind of like, but that's what got me into real estate. It was actually like, I think I had that house, and then I bought another house, and I just held on to it because I couldn't sell it really. And it was like, I kind of was like phasing out of wakeboarding, and then I was focusing more and more on the gym. So I was really focused on the gyms for like 2 years. I ended up selling the gyms. It was a ton of work. And then like afterwards, I still had the houses, and I was like, man, my dollar per hour is actually by far the highest from like these two, like doing Airbnb and stuff, like, and these two houses than it ever was from like wakeboarding or running these gyms or anything like that. It's like, why don't I just focus on that? So that was kind of around 2019, 2020. Yeah. Well, and then another God moment, I guess, is like I ended up selling the gyms in November of 2019. So I had three
right
of them in
before
Orlando.
COVID. Yeah,
Sold
golly.
it right before COVID.
Yeah.
And then, but it was in the process of the gyms that I met my partner, because he was helping me do the site selection. And so then that's how I got into commercial real estate. Because when I sold those, then he invited me to come and do commercial real estate site selection and development for healthcare groups. And then because I was done wakeboarding and my body was feeling way too good, like I didn't have any injuries, or I woke up feeling awesome. I was like, hey, why don't I go do Ninja Warrior? Because I need something to beat me up, apparently. And so that's kind of the timeline, and happy to dive into detail on any one of those things.
Yeah. No, okay. So obviously you're a guy who likes to sit still. I can tell, right? You have nothing going on in your head or don't want to take action. No, obviously. And it's such I love that, right? And I appreciate anybody that way, because it's such an entrepreneurial story in entrepreneurial life. That's how we are. We bounce from thing to thing. A lot of people don't understand, like, Tyler and I had an Amazon business. Why do you have an Amazon business? You have a real estate team. That doesn't make sense. You're like, it's not going to make sense, right? It's just that I thought that was interesting. Right. Yeah. We thought, and it was terrible, and I've talked about that on the show. It was the worst decision we could have made, but we were like, it's going to be amazing because we're entrepreneurs, and I assume it's going to be awesome. And it just wasn't. But okay, so let's kick back real quick, because I love that as an overview. So you're growing up, you're doing wakeboarding, you're learning from these guys, and then you really decide, I really want to kick this in high gear. And was your thought at that point, I want to become a professional? And then it was, in order to do that, I got to do X, Y, and Z? Or how did you get to the point to say, I love it, now I'm going to make a career out of it? What did that take? What did that look like?
With wakeboarding, you're asking?
Yeah, correct.
Yeah. So we started doing the local competitions right away. My parents were very supportive. That was awesome. I never knew if I was going to make it professionally. I didn't know, if I had what it takes. And so I always focused on school, and like that was my fallback plan. And I said, if I ever have to choose between wakeboarding and school, like I'll choose wakeboarding. I just, I never really had to choose. I got to do both. But the way it kind of works is like when you can do the junior tour until you're 18, and when you're 18, you have to go pro pretty much if you want to keep doing it. And so that's what happened. I graduated high school, turned 18, and then I moved down to Florida to go on the pro tour. And so at the time, I had done well. Like I think around 16, I realized like, hey, like I think I can turn this into a career, But I mean, like in hindsight, do you know Alex Hormozy?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I got lucky enough. I worked with him directly in 2017 when I had the gyms. We were one early on in doing gym launch, but he really breaks down everything into a science. And so honestly, like I believe you can do whatever you want to. I mean, like, okay, maybe not NBA because you got to be like 7 feet tall. But for the most part, I honestly believe you can do almost anything you want to if you break it down into a science. And even Malcolm Gladwell says the 10,000 hour rule, meaning if you do something for 10,000 hours, you're an expert. And so I kind of took that mentality. It's like I wanted to ride all the time. Like I would try and ride 3 times a day, which is like, 20, 30-minute sets. But it takes a toll on your body and look, I mean, when I'm 16, you're pretty much invincible, but
Yeah.
that was pretty much what I was focused on. I was wakeboarding, I was going to school, I was working out, I'd ride 3 times and then I would hit the gym. And so I was literally obsessed with this. And so I think I just figured like if I worked hard enough at it, I could do it. And so to your point about discipline, at the end of the day, like that's what it comes down to is discipline. And so I wish I had like some hack for like how to get more discipline or whatever, but I think I had high motivation, right? I think maybe one of the ways to look at it is like you're most motivated for what you think you're lacking in. You're lacking in the most. And so like I looked at the guys who were the best and I felt like really far away from them. And so that motivated me because I wanted to be more like them, right? And that's a dangerous mentality to get on because it can lead to, discontentment and unfulfillment, which we can talk about later. But I think like for me, I wanted it so bad that gave me the discipline. Like I knew that if I was going to be good at this, I had to put in the reps and I had to put in the hours. And I figured if I did this enough times that I would eventually get the outcome I was looking for. And that's exactly what happened. And another thing about that is, I never had the goal to be the best in the world, which sounds so weird now. Like I remember other people saying that and being like, oh, you just put yourself out there because if you don't hit that goal, then you're going to look like an idiot. Well, he did become the best in the world, like when he said that at a young age. And it's like, oh, it's like I hit the goal. Like I wanted to be, like the best paid guy for my level. Like that's such a weird, random goal. But like, I could have, if I would have shot higher, I think I could have gotten higher. Like, yeah, I got second in worlds and I had some great finishes, but like, I could have done a lot better, right? Even though on paper it looks great, like we always are left feeling like we could have done better. And so I think it's just an interesting thought process, really, like a thought exercise of like, you can achieve like what you really shoot for.
Yeah, so I think that's fascinating because so let's dig into that. And there's a couple of things I'll unpack, but let's dig into that specifically because how do we join that with this biblical worldview, right? Because I think, at least in my opinion, in my personal experience, there's always this balance in this wrestling of ambition versus obedience, right? I can become so ambitious that I'm in front of the Lord, if you will. Not that you can do that, right? But like I'm in front of where the Lord wants me to be. And then I can just sit there in obedience and not have any ambition, which is also not honoring to the Lord. And I'm sitting there waiting for something to happen. He's like, I granted you ambition so that you would use it for my sake and my glory, right? And so to me, there's always kind of that wrestling, and you tend to be one or the other. You tend to be overly ambitious like I am, and obviously you are. You tend to be overly quote unquote obedient, which I would say actually ends up being laziness because you're sitting there doing nothing, waiting on the Lord to do something. It's like, well, you got to get up and you got to move your feet, right? So that opportunity to say, well, if I'd aimed for more, I could have gotten more, right? How do we balance that? Because there is this, I'm reading a book right now about Elon Musk, and it's so fascinating.
Is it his biography?
Yeah, it's his biography.
I read that last year, yeah. Walter Isaacson, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
and when
so
you
good.
start to see any of these high performers, right, there is almost an unbridled ambition, and that's why they get there. Now, he's not a Christian, and that's certainly he's not doing it to honor the Lord by any means.
He doesn't have a good family life either.
It's a terrible family life, terrible upbringing, all those things. But his unbridled ambition, like Steve Jobs, those people that have changed the world, didn't know the Lord, number one, and so there was no guardrail. There didn't need to be for them. The question in all that is for us, right, because you still made it to this high level, and you said you could have made it higher. How do we balance that, though, right? How do we understand what should be our ambition level, if you will, versus we got to scale back and we say, I'm going to be the best, and then it causes us to do things maybe we shouldn't or whatever, or become obsessive in the way we should, whatever it is. Does that question make sense? How do we do that?
Yeah, first of all, I don't think I have the right answer to this, but I can just tell you how I think about it.
Please.
And on a tangent on that, I think it's kind of funny how there's a lot of like really successful guys and billionaires who go out and write their books or their own autobiography, and they say what you got to do, and they say they kind of, like low key brag about all the work that they put in and that sort of thing, and they're all divorced, and then they all say, oh, make sure you value your family, like make sure you put your family first so you don't have to give them up. And it's like, okay, so you're bragging about how much work you did, you're telling us that we got to work this hard, but then you're saying like, put your family first. It's like, my takeaway is kind of that, like, you can't really achieve that level of success without severely compromising your family.
Hmm.
And so that's just a side note, but I got to remind myself of that like all the time, because I'm just so tempted to look at everybody else who's ahead of me financially or her spiritually, so, like whatever. Like I
Yeah,
have a tendency to compare myself to
Comparison.
but like
Yeah,
specifically
absolutely.
financially, and be like, oh, like what do I have to do to get there? Like why am I not there? And so,
Hmm.
but then it's like, well, you know, you might give up your family if you do that. And I almost did give up my family last year, which we can talk about. But it's like, so to me, I really think it comes down to your heart. Like, what is the motivation behind your heart? Because you may or may not be able to tell that like externally. You probably can, but it might not be so evident. And so I think like like I took like a day to journal and talk with God last month, and just like read the book of James, which I love. And I just felt like God was saying, you're living for the dot, not the line. Like the dot is like the amount of time we have on earth, and like the line is like eternity, right? Like it's like the dot that starts it. And it's like, God doesn't care about how much money you make at all. He cares about like what you do with it. He doesn't care about how successful you are, or like how fast you apply what you learn from a podcast. Or for me, like I've done a couple masterminds this year, and I've been involved in a couple groups where I see all these people doing amazing things, and I just am always like having to juggle not feeling incompetent or inferior to the people who are like at the very top of the quote unquote totem pole. And so what I really felt God saying was like, that stuff, like it really doesn't matter. Like what matters is a relationship with Him. I mean, like you have to obviously go to work, put your hand to the plow. In Proverbs it says, in all labor there is profit. So like, I think you were saying earlier, the answer is not to just sit on the couch and be like, well, God loves me and He'll sustain me. Like, no, that's laziness. That's sloth. Like that is absolutely not okay. But I got a feeling most listeners on this podcast probably don't have that problem. We're probably more geared towards achieving things. And so I think the question is just like, why do you want to achieve things so bad? Because I got to check myself all the time. It's like, truthfully, I want to look good in front of other people that I don't even know. Like, what is silly?
So true.
What a silly thing. So it's like, well, if the reason is because like you want to honor God in the way that you do it, like doing things with integrity, and then you can be generous with what you earn and what you keep. Like, I mean, with your tithing and your charity and gifts and that sort of thing. But like doing it all, I think the biggest thing is like whatever you do to make money, like doing it in an honest way. And then, but like also maybe having time constraints around like when you work. Like that's been a big thing for me too. Cause like, if you're just working really hard and like, you're making a bunch of money and maybe you're really generous, but you neglect your family, which I had a tendency to do, I don't think that's honoring God, So I don't know, the way I'm kind of landing and trying to balance this right now, if we want to get like really specific, is just like weekends are recovery days. So I'm trying really hard to not work at all. I'm still failing. And then I try and stop work at 6 p.m., at least from like 6 to 8:30 or 9. Maybe if I have a couple things to do after that, I'll do that. But like really try, even though I set my own schedule, I work from home, I do whatever. It's like trying to be like, okay, set like very specific, very guarded family times. And I think like God will honor that, It's like, if I make less money because I do this, like, so what, like what does that matter? But I think I'm free to make absolutely as much money as humanly possible within like doing it without neglecting my family, doing it in the time that I've dedicated, and doing it in a way that's honest and with integrity. So I don't know.
No, that's so good. I mean, and I think that's right. There's no clear cut answer, right? But I think that's spot on. It is the question of where's my heart in this, right? Am I building? I was sharing to this group I was coaching earlier that it's really easy for me to convince myself I'm building the Lord's kingdom when really I'm building my own. And I can convince myself so hard, this is for the Lord, this is for the Lord, or I need to get influence because then I'll point them to the gospel, whatever. And it's exactly what you said. It's just because I want them to know who I am. I just want to receive glory. That's how we are. We're wired. We're going to battle the Lord for that all the time. And we need to repent and put that to death and have people around us come and put that to death. Right. But 100% of what you're saying, I think, is spot on. The reality for us is so I talk about this, like what I call the hierarchy of attention, right? And the biblical hierarchy is the Lord, my wife, then my kids, then my work. And it's really easy for me, right? Because the Lord, really, you look at my wife and my kids they're not going to get another husband and another dad. They can't. But my clients can get another agent. right? Or whatever. I was leading worship at our church, and I was spending a lot of time there years ago, and my pastor comes up to me. This is where I really learned this concept from him. And I was like, Pastor, I don't know what to do. I love leading worship. My wife's asking me to kind of scale back because we're not going to church together and church in a box, right? I was just there a lot. And so I said, what do I do? Because I want to serve the church. He said, and he flat out said, Garrett, the church can find another worship leader, but your wife's not going to find another husband.
Yeah.
So, right, you need to go home was his point. And so I think when you talk about that, as long as we're honoring, I agree with you, as long as we are honoring the God-given priorities, then go be amazing at what you're doing, because that also honors the Lord. And if that means you make a crazy amount of money, praise God. If that means you make just enough to live, praise God. And we also, to your point, serve a God. It's our unfair advantage, if you ask me, that if I'm honoring the Lord by being present with my kids where someone else is working and it's not honoring to the Lord, right, and they're ignoring their family, the Lord can grow my business anyways, right? Like, he can do whatever he wants. I'm not saying, again, it's not like I can sit there and do nothing. But the point is, I love that idea. It's time constraints. For me, I'm done at 5 every day. I'm not working past that, right? I mean, not sometimes I do, right? Just like you, just like any entrepreneur, but it is the protection of those things. My family needs to know when I'm there, I'm present. And if they can't figure that out, I'm doing something wrong. My order is wrong. I've got to figure that out, right? Now, so I love your answer. I'm going to ask you a question in that context. So you're talking about masterminds and all of these different pieces, right? I think it's absolutely true. We should be growing. We should be learning. We should do all the things. But we should also be really careful, because for us in the real estate space, right, for any space that you're in, investing, whatever it is, in these spaces, it's not often governed by a biblical mindset, right? So, of course, the real estate industry is going to say, what are you doing? Go sell more homes. Do this, do that, do all these things, make more money. If you're not doing that, you're not succeeding. And it's really easy for us to listen to those voices, right? It's easy to, man, I feel that deeply. It's easy to look at the people and say, look at what they're accomplishing and want that and feel bad about that, or compare myself or strive after that too, when I know deep down their family is suffering. But I'm like, it's fine, I can do both, right? How do we avoid, this is an impossible question, so you're not going to have a perfect answer, right? But how do we avoid / caution ourselves against this comparison that's going to lead us astray, right? Legitimately lead us astray, cause us, you said you had a challenge with your family, almost lose your family, like talk about whatever you want to talk about there. But how do we protect ourselves from that, right? Because it's everywhere. What do we do?
Well, yeah, I feel like I have the right answer, but it's not necessarily one that I'm good at. But I just joined a program called Strategic Coach with Dan Sullivan. This guy named Dr. Benjamin Hardy, who's also a believer, but he wrote a book called The Gap. I think they partnered on the book called The Gap in the Gain. Yeah,
great book.
Have you heard about that? Mm-hmm. Have you read it?
Yes, great book.
Yeah, so I haven't read that book, but I'm familiar with it, by being in the program. But and I'm glad you're asking, because beginning of the year is like a really good time to go through this. But what they say is we're always going to be dissatisfied when we compare ourselves to like other people, right? And so like as entrepreneurs, we set our goal, like we whatever it is, we're gonna move it, right? And so it becomes like the horizon. Like we walk towards it, but we never feel like we're gaining distance. We're closing the distance, because we aren't. So if we're always looking at the goals, we're going to be continually dissatisfied. But that's called the gap. But when we look at the gain means where do we come from? And so you have to take time to turn around and reflect. And I still haven't done it. And at the time of this recording, it's January 6th. Like I need to do that for 2024. I'll do it right when we get off the call. But it's like, just that turning around and looking at, okay, a year ago I was here, right? Man, maybe you had a bad year. Maybe go back 2 years. At like some point, you have definitely made progress in your life in certain areas. A big progress point for me is I'm recovering from addiction. I've been sober for since February 4th of this year, or 2024. Awesome. And so, almost lost my family in the process. And, being sober has been like a big spiritual journey for me. And so a big thing for me is like every day I have to do my devotions in the morning. I read from the 12-step book for anybody who's familiar with that. And then I will read from the Bible, maybe do some meditation, that sort of thing. But like it keeps me grounded, because I do have a tendency to just constantly compare myself to others. And I get more and more like ambitious and angry and covetous and jealous of other people as the day goes on. And then it's like, I have to like reset that every morning by being like, okay, God, you're in control. It's about relationships, not about material things, not about how much I can accumulate. But it's about relying on you, and showing your love to other people throughout the day, and like giving time to other people as well as resources. So yeah, those things have been helpful to me. And like, look, I have a long way to go, but I think like that's a good framework to look at.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, we're all a work in progress for sure, right? And I appreciate your honesty in that. If someone comes on here and they're like, I've never sinned, I'm like, you're not a believer, get off. That's not true.
Yeah.
We struggle with those things all the time, and for each person they're different. So we talk about, right, all these disciplines, and you can share whatever, but discipline is a bad word for a lot of people. It is for me a lot of times. So I've got a health coach right now, and discipline of trying to get my body back in and I work out. It's not my body. It's the eating is the problem, right? Because I love donuts. They're amazing. And they're definitely going to be in heaven as a side note. But they won't make me fat, and that'll be a beautiful thing. But the reality for me is the number of times I've messaged him, and he's been amazing, but the number of times I've messaged him and just said, Matt, man, I just don't want to do this, right? Like, I don't want to care right now. And it's a reminder of, bro, you got to choose this. If you don't choose your mindset, you're going to chance your mindset. And I chance it a lot in certain areas, right? In some areas I tend to be good. In some areas I tend to not be as good. But for you to be disciplined in the getting up every day, of certainly wakeboarding, right? Going out 3 times a day, getting out and being disciplined to read your Bible, right? Read the 12 steps, I think you said, and do some prayer or meditation, whatever that looks like for you. Those disciplines, is discipline something for you that you just had to figure out and you just did it enough where it became natural? Or is it something that you're constantly wrestling with, whether you want to be disciplined, right? Because I think our bodies and our minds naturally become undisciplined, and the devil wants to distract us with everything. And so that's part of what he's trying to do. But, discipline, everybody can look and say, yeah, if you're consistent, it's going to create consistent results. Most of us can't do that. So for you in getting to those higher levels, or for you right now, or whatever it is that's going on, how do you maintain discipline? Is it a mindset thing? Is it, I just have to, talk about that.
Well, yeah, this is something that I've always struggled with, because like, I hate constraints in any form, right? Like I've done the macro counting, and I can do it as long as like I can eat junk food, right? But like I've done different diets where it's like you got to take out junk food, or like I tried vegan, and like I want to eat. Maybe I can do smaller portions, but I got to try everything. And so like the discipline of like putting everything on a calendar and sticking to it, like a lot of people say it works for them, and it hasn't really worked well for me. Obviously I do have things on the calendar, right? I think the way that I kind of look at about it now is just trying to be reactive, trying to set up things to where I am reactive. And so what I mean by that is like with wakeboarding, it would be, I would just call somebody and say, hey, do you want to ride tomorrow? Right? Like, do you want to ride at 9? Well, it's like, okay, he's coming over to drive the boat at 9. So it doesn't really matter what I feel like at 9 o'clock, because he's going to be there to drive the boat. Right. And so I have my weekly calls with my property managers for the short-term rentals and the wedding venues. And so every Monday and Friday at like 9 and 10, we're getting on the phone and we're talking. Like, again, it doesn't matter what I feel like, but I've tried to create a situation to which I'm reactive about that. So I don't have to feel like doing anything, but like at 9 a.m., we're going to be talking about the properties and what needs to be done. And so I think like in order to continue to create that, and I've put stuff in the calendar, and like I have done it, like for me, what kind of works is my email. Like, and it's the worst thing. They all say don't do it, but like my email kind of serves as my to-do list, And so like I go through it and I check things off, and what ends up happening is like, I do the quickest ones first, and then like it stuck with the long ones at the end of the day. And so that does suck. So there's room for improvement. But like when it comes to like how do you continue in growth and and scale something and whatever, like for me, I think it's like acquisitions. And so if I do an acquisition, like that's going to make, if I put in an offer on something, right, like that's going to make me reactive. And then I'm going to have to balance my time well. Like I'm going to have to start, calling investors and scheduling time with them for people who are interested in doing the deals. And then I'm going to have to get these things to the bank. And after I acquire the property, I'm going to have to hire people, to do the management. I'm going to, now we're on this timeline, like your IRR is ticking the second you close, and you got to put it to use, right? So like all of a sudden things become really reactive. So I don't know, that's kind of like the way I look at it is like, how can I set up things that make, and even like I have virtual assistants and, I have some virtual property managers and physical property managers and whatever. And so like I'm trying to make things easier for myself, but like I'll ask them like, hey, hold me accountable, like let's set a deadline together for me, because like without a deadline, I'm just not going to do it.
Yeah, no, that's good. But I love that. I mean, I love the honesty again, but I also appreciate that, because I would say the majority of real estate agents are also that way. But like you said, they're hearing all the time, that's not a good way to be. That's not a good way to be. Instead of, hey, if that's who you are, let's figure out how to make that work, because that's who the Lord made you to be. It doesn't mean we can't become more excellent in things, right? Don't hear me say that. But I love that that's the honesty, right? You've accomplished a lot. You're continuing to do that in the Lord's grace, but it's by causing other people to initiate things, so you have to react to that. That's really interesting, right? A buddy of mine, and I'm sure many people have said this, but he told me he wanted to lose weight and train, and so he figured he'd train for a triathlon, but he knew he'd never do it. So he started a local group to train for the triathlon. He's like, that way I knew they'd be coming to my house and I better get up.
Forced accountability.
Right. Yeah. The forced accountability. And that's really smart. Whether agent, that's, you have a friend who's really disciplined and you say, call me every day at whatever, 9 a.m. and make me tell you what I'm doing that day for lead generation, or did you read your Bible, or whatever it is. Those things, that's a really good idea, right? Is just create the forced accountability, like you said. Last thing I want you to comment on is and I just love that you said this. You said earlier that you worked hard enough at it that you knew you could do it, right? It is the 10,000 hour rule, right? But it's just the reps. It's just the showing up, right? You're better today at finding and purchasing a wedding venue than you were when you started, right? It's just showing up in the reps. And I do think a lot of the comparison game shows us the person. I'll give a quick personal example. A buddy of mine about a month ago or so, I'm doing this class for believers in my area just to help them understand finances in certain ways that I've learned and whatever. Anyways, one of the guys who's really smart, I mean, he's way smarter than me, right? I'm constantly amazed how many people smarter than me don't make as much money as I do just because I'm in real estate and they're not, right?
Yeah.
He's got his MBA from a prestigious college. And anyways, and he goes, man, I love that, Garrett. I just wish I could do what you did. And I stopped and I said, first of all, you totally can. And second of all, you're looking at me after 10 years, you'd be starting day one. So of course you won't be as good as I am. Don't look at me 10 years ahead of you and think, well, I can't do that. And then you're just discouraged by that comparison game, right? There's no way for you and I to meet 10 years ago on my day one and you see how terrible I was at this. But it's that reality of I've just gotten the reps. Man, for anybody listening, if you want to do something well, just start doing the reps. In the beginning of it's going to be terrible. And you just keep doing it, right? How many times you fell when you started wakeboarding? How many times you fell doing American Ninja Warrior, right? I just took my kids to a trampoline park last week, and there's like this American Ninja Warrior little thing. I couldn't even do the first one, right? And my kids could do it. I'm like, this is terrible.
Yeah, the kids' strength to body weight ratio, their grip strength is
crazy.
Is crazy when they have almost
well,
no weight.
Maybe I shouldn't feel so bad, right? But the point is, but if I kept doing it, I would be able to do it. I think that's the struggle, right? Is we don't have the patience to get the reps in to become excellent at something, right? For you, is it just, I want to be excellent, therefore I must get the reps? I mean, is it just that simple?
Yeah, for the most part, it's like with wakeboarding, it was, I knew what I had to do, right, in order to be good at it. And it was just a question of like, how bad do I want to be good at it? And so for whatever reason, I can't really take credit for it. Maybe the way God designed me, but like I wanted to be good at it really, really, really bad. Like I just wanted to be good at wakeboarding so bad. And yeah, I think it's the same with real estate. I mean, real estate, the benefit is there's no pain consequence. Like with wakeboarding, it was like, okay, yeah, if I try this new trick and I fall, like that could really hurt, right?
Yeah,
Pain's always in the back of your head. And then same with ninja too. Like, I got to try this maneuver that I've never tried before, and if I fall, 10 feet, that might hurt a little bit. So it is slightly different there.
Sure,
but it's just like for some reason I wanted it really bad, so I knew that if I just kept showing up, eventually it felt like it would have to work out. And so I don't know. Does that answer your question?
No, that's great. I mean, again, that's encouragement. And I would just encourage our audience. And Austin said it, you don't know why the Lord made you that way. So agents, what we're trying to do is encourage you to figure out, how did the Lord make me? And then go be excellent at that, right? Because Austin didn't choose from birth that he was going to desire to be excellent at wakeboarding. The Lord placed that in him, and then he did the work, right? For you, agent listening, if you don't love whatever it is that the industry is telling you to do, go figure out what it is that the Lord has placed in you. And that might be something in real estate. It might be missions. It might be playing guitar, whatever it is, I don't care. But the Lord gave you a passion for a reason, whatever that is. Do the work to be excellent at it, right? That's what Austin's talking about. He doesn't know why the Lord made him love wakeboarding and want to be great at it, but he did, and so he did the work. That's what we're talking about here. Not everyone is wired like him. Not everyone's wired like me. Praise God. There are so many different types of people. However the Lord wired you, go strive to be excellent at that. That's how we honor him. Yeah, please.
You know, I will say one thing on that's helped me recently. Like after I sold the companies or the gyms, like I did have a lot of free time, and I was like, well, maybe like I can do whatever I want whenever I want. Maybe I'll watch a movie, and I'll work later. But like one thing I noticed is order matters. And so specifically, like if you're not feeling disciplined and you're not feeling motivated, like for me, I still struggle with those things. One thing that I did was I didn't say no, you can't do it. Like, no, you can't watch TV, you can't watch movies, you can't ever eat junk food. No, it's do it after, right? So if I want to have dessert, I do it after dinner. And if I want to watch Netflix, I want to watch a movie, I don't do that first thing in the morning. I want to do the harder things first, right? So like in the mornings, 3 times a week, I'm doing sauna cold plunge. And then I'll work out. I try and work out as early as possible. But on ninja days, it's a little later. But if I want to watch TV, I just do that at the end of the day, after I've done everything else. And so that's another way. It's like, it kind of helps motivate me because it's like, hey, if I get this thing done, then I can reward myself with this thing. So I don't know if that's helpful or not.
That's really good. And I just now have a new goal that I also have ninja days because that just sounds awesome. Yeah, being able to say that. But awesome, man. We went over time because it was so good. So much good wisdom here, brother. I appreciate you sharing that. Man, if our agents want to connect with you, learn from you, follow you, how would they go about doing that?
Yeah, reach out on LinkedIn. That's kind of the platform I'm most active on. It's just Austin, like the city, hair like on your head. Yeah, we're doing, short-term rentals, and we're really into wedding venues. So converting a lot of the short-term rentals into wedding venues is like a niche that I'm really interested in, and so would be happy to talk about that with anybody. And then we do some commercial healthcare buildings as well. But that's kind awesome. Of the niches that I'm in.
That's great, man. It's super helpful, brother. We appreciate you so much coming and sharing your heart with us, brother. So, agents, we love you, and we will see you next week. Hey, Christian agent, I get it because I am just like you. You got into this business for more time, money, and freedom, but how is that going? Maybe like me, you found yourself succeeding more often, but missing out on more family dinners. Or maybe you've been wondering this whole time, why are you working your butt off but not making any progress? Or you continue to see the people up on stage who lost their marriage, but they sold a lot of houses, so they get celebrated anyways. Well, the truth is, in 2 Corinthians, the Bible tells us to not be unequally yoked. We get so caught up in following the world's way that we forget to follow the Lord's way. And that's why I launched the 210 Collective at EXP, so Christian agents all over the globe could finally be in business together. We could finally be more excellent together, and we could finally be encouraged to set the right priorities and honor God by honoring our families above our work. So if you're ready to take your business to the next level and you want to learn, grow, and connect with other Christian agents, I'd love to talk with you. Head over to 210collective.com/podcast or click the link in the show notes to text me directly and book a call. You're not going to be talking to some member of my team. You'll be talking with me directly, and I promise to shoot you straight. I'd love to talk to you how we can get you plugged into an amazing community of agents who share your values and visions. So click that link in the show notes, text me, set up a time to chat. I would love to connect with you. Until next time, keep building your business with purpose and faith.